Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Coach's Corner. I'm Jeffrey David Hartford, your host and the coach. That's the conduit of optimism, altruism, consciousness, and health. And generally, I bring to you a guest that can bring us and provide us some information that falls into those categories. And I was lined up to have one of those guests come on today, but such as life, something came up, some technical difficulties on the guest's end, and we were able to reschedule. But I decided, since I was here and set up, I was still going to come to you and bring you some information. And what I decided to bring to you actually is based upon a question that I received from a good friend of mine from childhood. He's been following along on my Facebook and Instagram for quite some time, and he recently threw out a question to me regarding TRT. And while I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on it, kind of goes in line with what this channel is all about. Is I'm a conduit. I'm not the expert in it. About the only thing that I'll claim to be an expert in is being myself. And even that, I make a lot of mistakes. I guess that's part of what makes us experts at something, is trial and error and ensuring that when we make a mistake, we don't repeat it. In terms of being myself, I think I'm getting better and better at it while still making a lot of mistakes along the way. But I digress. With regards to TRT, my personal take at this point, and this is based on plenty of research that I've done and kind of just where I'm at overall with pharmaceuticals in general. I generally look at it from the perspective of whatever ailment we have is not a deficiency of a pharmaceutical. So to rely upon pharmaceuticals of any form just feels to me like we're missing the boat. While there is a time and a place for them, and I'm not totally opposed, my approach is to be a little more holistic about it and ask ourselves, am I doing everything in my power to ensure my body is capable of maximizing its potential at whatever goal that I have? So this particular individual, I'll keep his name out of it because I'll share one vital detail for his personal case. And that is that when we were younger, he wound up with testicular cancer and had one of his testicles removed. So as you can imagine, that clearly plays into why he's asking about this and if it's appropriate for him. And there could very well be a case that it is. I don't know whether or not he's opted to go that route yet or not. And hopefully some of the information I have here for him can guide him in that direction. But I've just put together a list of things that I want to make sure that any of you out there that are thinking about utilizing some form of assistance, if you will, if you're not already doing these other things, there's so much you have control over to give your body the stimulus that it needs to optimize its own natural production first and foremost before we rely upon something else. And I would say tops on that list is sleep. In order to maximize our sleep, that also brings us into what I've been talking about a lot lately, and that's circadian rhythm and getting our body in sync with it, especially this time of year. In order for us to maximize our sleep, we need to consider how much are we getting natural light versus how much are we stuck indoors? Are we avoiding the cold and staying inside and having all these artificial lights on to keep us alert? The sun sets rather early now, here in the Northeast. Boy, it's 4:30, 5 o'clock. It's starting to get pretty darn dark out there. So if you're keeping those indoor lights on and you're staying up 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock and staring at screens in addition to these artificial lights, what we now know is the artificial blue light that we have from the LED bulbs, from the fluorescent bulbs, from all the screens we're looking at, whether it's your phone, your tablet, your computer, the TV, whatever it may be, the stimulus that gives your cells is that blue light is telling your cells that it is still about noontime, middle of the day. And the response there is it'll increase your cortisol, which then increases your blood sugar, so you stay alert and you have this energy, and it will suppress your melatonin. Melatonin, amongst many, many other things, is vital in giving us this opportunity to fall asleep and stay asleep and maximize the body's recovery. So I'd say a couple of things we can think about how to maximize that, how to get in sync with that circadian rhythm is start tomorrow morning, do whatever you have to do to get up either just before or as the sun is rising, and try to get outside. Yes, even if it's really cold out. I mean, I get out every morning. I'm not saying because I do it, you have to, but I'm outside every morning. I'm standing my bare feet on the ground. I did it today and we had some snow coming down. That grounding impact plays a role as well that maybe we can get into later, but getting your eyes and your skin exposed to that sun as it's rising up is really going to tell your body at that cellular level what time of day it is. It's going to communicate with what's called your suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is essentially your body's internal clock. And we really have to make sure we're getting in sync with that, especially in today's day and age with all our modern technology. As I alluded to before, when those lights are on after sunset, the body still thinks it's the middle of the day, but we're not getting the full spectrum of light that the sun would give us. We're just getting these artificial lights, and it's loaded with the blue light. So let's start there. Be honest with yourself. Are you sleeping well? Are you optimizing that? Are you getting, if we draw from sleep expert Matthew Walker's data, he says somewhere between 6, 7.5, and 9 hours is pretty optimal. He does that based upon a full sleep cycle in such that we've reached each wavelength of that sleep pattern. Our brain is going through those wavelengths, and about a full sleep cycle is about 90 minutes. And he estimates between 4 and 6 sleep cycles is a full night's sleep where you'll wake up feeling rested, and preferably without an alarm clock waking you up. So again, about that 6, 7.5, or 9 hours. Although this time of year, you may want to err on the side of a little bit longer even, and get to bed a little bit earlier and stay in bed until the sunrise or just there before to really maximize it. And then as the seasons change, we'll modify that. So here we are, December 5th, and we'll go based on this current season to bring in some of that data for you. So that's where I'd start, is sleep. Next, I bring in your nutrition. Are you optimizing your nutrition? Much like I'm doing with the sleep there and pulling in the circadian rhythm, we're going to continue to pull in some of these similar concepts in this quantum biology, really tapping into nature and getting more ancestral with these things. And if we're thinking about food, we really need to think about where's the food coming from, and trying to eat whole foods as often as possible, and preferably local. The more we can be eating local and seasonal, the more we're giving the body the information from the food of what time of year it is. So that's literally communicating with our body in terms of where are we at, how are we functioning, how's the body communicating with nature. Dr. Jack Kruse talks about that a lot, in that our food is essentially this barcode of light and information. So I really challenge you, if you're looking for something like a TRT to boost your energy, boost your sex drive, whatever it is that you feel you're lacking, your strength and so on, let's make damn sure we're prioritizing all these other things, this low-hanging fruit, if you will, of what we have access to, and have a little bit of discipline with it. As I talked about at the beginning in regards to what I'll consider myself an expert at, I've gotten better and better and better at being a version of myself, and that's come through making a lot of mistakes. And a lot of what I'm alluding to now, I did not do in the past, but it is absolutely where I'm at today. I maximize my sleep, I maximize my circadian rhythm, and I'm absolutely maximizing my nutrition now as well. And what I challenge you to do with this as well, I'll give you a couple of examples, some foods that we know for sure can help increase your testosterone. But we'll also consider things like, is a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet appropriate for you? If you're more plant-based, then hey, listen, that's on you. I don't judge anybody, but that's definitely not my area of expertise. I'm currently I would say low carb, definitely influenced by a little more keto, a little more carnivore, high protein and low carb, and my body's responding very well to it. But some specific foods you can consider. When we talk about meats, I'm very particular, and I'm really fortunate in the Northeast here, right in a couple towns over, to have a few local regenerative farms. I've actually got a podcast that I did with my buddy Bennett, who now owns his own farm up in Red Hook, New York, called North Haven Pastures. And I'll try to set it up that at the end of this one, it brings you right to that episode so you can hear from Bennett direct. And maybe in the show notes, I'll share the website to that as well for any of you that are local. So I'm particular to that. If you're eating meat, let's get regenerative. So regenerative beef, regenerative pork, chicken, eggs, pasture-raised regenerative eggs, some fatty fish, wild fish, a great source, some leafy greens, some oysters. These are some specific foods that we know you can do a simple Google search and see. You're going to come across a lot of these things that are known to help your body increase its production of testosterone. And again, I alluded to consider keto or carnivore because we know that fats are the building blocks of hormones. So we really need to make sure we're getting that in there for quite some time. If you think back, pretty early on in my career. And just before that, as I was starting to study a lot of this, we were still hearing about a lot of the low fat types of things and really pushing more of the grains and the higher carbs, and really not seeing phenomenal results with that, at least in my experience and in my studies. I'm sure there's plenty of you out there who can contradict that and say that in your experience you have, and God bless you for that. If it works for you, keep it up. But I'm going to go based on the experience that I've got, and we're seeing some great numbers happen with ketogenic, carnivore, and the such, especially seasonally. Come spring, summertime, when you're eating local and seasonal, we can certainly add in some different produce and such that'll give you a little variety to your food and get some different things in there, and your body will be more apt to utilize those. But if you're living in the Northeast here, and here we are in December, if you think you're going to be eating some citrus fruit or bananas or what have you, and your body's going to optimize, I'll tell you, you're going to be a little disappointed. So thus far, we're talking sleep, we're talking nutrition, and some different things to think about. And pulling from Dr. James DiNicolantonio's work, I would say shoot somewhere between a gram to even as high as 1.5 grams per pound of ideal body weight in terms of your protein recommendations. So your numbers can get up there, and what you'll find, or at least what I've found, is I'm having on average anywhere between 1 and 3 meals a day, with easily hitting somewhere in that 150 to 200 grams of protein per day, and feeling very satisfied, very, I'll incorporate a lot of fasting too, so that makes it a little bit easier. Once you get metabolically flexible and you break your addiction to carbohydrates, I find that helps a lot. But just some basic guidelines to work within there for your protein, and we'll see how you're feeling. Next up, I would say, is strength training. And I'll throw a little caveat with this. I'll get into some of the specifics after, but you're going to want to pre-cool your strength training as well. You can go back to the conversation I just had recently with Dr. Thomas Seeger of Morosco Forge. He has had some phenomenal results, and it is not just his N of 1 experiment that has proven this. We're seeing this over and over, that if you spend some time in an ice bath, cold plunge, what have you, as he says, cold enough to gasp and long enough to shiver to start, and it takes about 14 days to get your brown fat efficient enough to build up enough brown fat that you no longer shiver to warm up. You're getting the mitochondria in that brown fat to create that infrared light, which is essentially heat that's going to warm you up. And it's not fun. I won't lie to you. I'm going to challenge you to get comfortable being uncomfortable. I don't imagine it's exactly pleasurable jabbing a needle in you for some TRT either, even though the results are phenomenal. So if you're already leaning towards that side, if you're willing to do some uncomfortable things, then highly recommend get into that cold plunge ice bath before your workouts, pre-cool. And he has seen some dramatic numbers. I believe at 52 years old, you go back and listen to him tell it, but he got into it because of his elevated PSA numbers. But by the time he was done and his PSA numbers dropped, his testosterone at 52 was elevated all the way over 1100. And that's remarkable. I mean, his doctor automatically assumed he was taking steroids because that's just unheard of. And it's not as if he's some big bodybuilder guy. He's a professor at Arizona State University. He takes good care of himself now, but as he tells the story, at the time, he wasn't exactly in great shape. And for his numbers to be that high, that's pretty incredible. So if we can leverage some, I'll say, pretty simple things. I mean, it's simple doesn't always mean easy. It isn't really easy getting into that plunge, but to get those results, I think it's pretty darn easy and absolutely worth it, or pretty darn simple, rather. Catch myself there. So within terms of the strength training, it's going to be different for everybody. Volume, how much you're going to do, how much weight are you going to do, how many reps you're going to do. If you don't have experience with that, I highly recommend hire a trainer, do a little bit of studying on your own, maybe get a certification if necessary. I think that serves a lot of people out there, whether you become a trainer or not. Just for yourself, the upfront investment really isn't all that high, and there's just some time commitment to really learn what it is you're doing. But if you really want to make that impact on your life and have some longevity benefits, it's absolutely worth getting that knowledge. But for sure, maybe just invest into working with a professional who's already got those credentials. That'll work as well. But a general rule, I like to say, use the Goldilocks rule. You need some degree of a stimulus that's going to give your body the response of adapting to it. So if it isn't enough weight or enough repetitions, you're not going to get a whole lot out of it. It's not going to really give you much return on your investment. But if you do too much, it's going to end up being detrimental. So you got to find that middle ground of, enough to know your work and get a good pump on, and give your body that opportunity to adapt. And then it's going to come through the rest and recovery where you really get the benefits of it. I'd say 2 to 3 days a week to start is a great starting point. Non-consecutive days, you want to make sure that the day after it, you don't feel like you got hit by a truck. You don't need to be beating yourself up to see these results. Again, especially if the premise of this whole conversation is getting your testosterone up. If you're overtraining, you're beating your body up, you're certainly not going to see an increase in your testosterone. If anything, you'll probably see a drop. So highly recommend those types of things. Again, to recap, we're at sleep, we're at nutrition with that whole foods, lean keto, lean carnivore, get your proteins up, get your fats up. Your strength training, we want to pre-cool. We want to spend some time in that plunge. If you don't have access to something to get full body submersion, maybe start out, just get outside in the cold. Again, here we are, those of us in the Northeast, it's pretty darn cold out. You can spend some time outside. I will say that if you're going to go with just cold air, it's going to take you quite a bit longer than cold water, simply because that water is going to draw that heat away from your body a whole lot quicker. And that stimulus will be to get your brown fat kicked in, your mitochondria turned on to do its job to warm you up, and or the shiver response if you aren't cold adapted just yet. But spend some time getting cold and then warm yourself up with your strength training. Next up, I'm going to say eliminate alcohol. Yeah, I know I'm not exactly the fun guy to be around from where our current social status is. There's so much geared towards getting together to get intoxicated, to get out of our this reality that we've created for ourselves. But we're coming up pretty soon. January 8th of 2025, I will be at the 2-year mark of no alcohol. This isn't about me patting myself on the back. That's just to let you know that here I am making a recommendation, and I'll share with you, yes, indeed, I follow my own advice. And it's pretty remarkable how much better you can feel when you stop putting toxins in your body. And I think we all know full well that the reason we feel what we feel when we drink is that that's a toxin. It's not helping us out. It is not good for us. I've yet to have a conversation with somebody that truly believes that alcohol is good for them, but they might spend some energy arguing with me that it's worth it for them. And that's fine. I'm not going to talk you out of it. It's not my case to be had. If you want to do it, do it. But again, if you're talking TRT, you're talking, I'm looking to maximize my body's production of testosterone, and you're willing to put a needle in you with some form of an exogenous testosterone, I'd like to believe you're willing to make a commitment and eliminate putting some toxins in your body, such as alcohol. And that'll bring us to the next one. Avoid environmental toxins. 2 big ones that I would say, while some people like to argue these things, and it seems to be highly political, it seems to be blatantly obvious to me that both of these examples I'll give have been shown time and time again to negatively impact our hormones. And that's BPA in a lot of the different plastics, and atrazine. And we're getting a lot of those literally just from our water. And it's hard. I like to recommend getting the best source of water you can, preferably some cold sourced spring water. But, the BPA and the plastics, it's hard to find some of these waters bottled, not in plastic. If you can, spend that money, get it bottled in glass, maybe in cans, but just put a little bit of time in, do a little research, and be willing to make that investment. Again, I haven't done it myself, but I know TRT is not cheap. So if you're willing to use that needle, if you're willing to use that substance, and you're willing to spend that money, I think we just put together a pretty good list here of some things that you can do to maximize your body's potential to generate testosterone. And, you're going to want to get some blood work done in order to see where you're at. So I'd start there before you even make these changes. Start and see where you currently are. And hopefully for some of you, you're hearing this information before you start taking some TRT, especially if you're on the younger side. I hate the idea of starting to take some sort of an exogenous substance that we wind up needing to use for any length of time, because the body just stops making its own and it relies upon that exogenous form as opposed to what it makes endogenously. So I think that's where I'll leave you for today. Hopefully there's a lot you took from this that you can apply right off the bat. Again, I guess in order, I'd say get your blood work done so you know where you are. But that might take a minute. So it's certainly worth starting some of these things now as well. So we want to get that circadian rhythm synced, see that sunrise, see some midday sun, see the sun set, and limit your exposure to blue light before sunrise and after sunset. Wearing a pair of my blue light blocking glasses here. These are the yellow lens. These will block about 50% of the blue light. These are best for during the day. And then the amber lens, I got my pair right here. These are best for the evening. These will block 100% of blue light. And I swear to you, they feel like a cheat code because God bless my wife and my family for putting up with me. But these past couple of weeks, I've literally been in bed by 7:30, 8 o'clock every night. And it makes a total difference getting that rest and recovery. And I'm really looking forward to testing that in come spring and summer when it's still light out until 9:30. I will see. I'll challenge myself to stay up later, knowing that that's what the circadian rhythm is telling me to do, and trust my body's ability to adapt to it. But so circadian rhythm, sleep, nutrition, pre-cool your strength training, eliminate alcohol and drugs for that matter, recreational drugs. I didn't mention that before, but for sure that's going to play some role too in preventing your body from working optimally, and avoid those environmental toxins. I'm sure there's a whole lot more that we could talk about, but to get started, we'll talk BPA and atrazine. All right, so I hope this really helped you out. If it did, please share it around, share it with your friends, anyone you think it can help. Subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, because I do intend on bringing you more and more content. Like, comment, share, all that good stuff. If you don't like it, drop a comment about why you didn't, and I'll see what I can do for you. So till next time, have a blessed day. Be well. Thanks for sticking around.